It's no secret that I am a huge fan of anime and manga, but when I was a teenager, I had god-awful taste. I only cared about three things: cool fights, pseudo-intellectual shows that made me feel like I was better than anyone else around me, and boobs. Oh my god, I watched so many shows just for the fan service, but I could never admit when that's all they really had going for it. Jesus, I can't believe I actually watched Camphor. But if there's one boob-filled anime from my youth that I still watch and enjoy to this day, it's Golden Boy.
You son of a...
This show is one of the horniest things that I have ever watched, and it is full of scenes that would definitely get this video demonetized or straight up removed from YouTube. It revels in crude humor, and I'll be the first one to admit that there are some parts that really didn't age well, but after rewatching it, it's still laugh out loud hilarious.
So, how do you like my swimming?
So today, let's take a deep dive into this absurdist masterpiece, from the original manga, to the anime, to the really weird shit that came after. Hello and welcome to Comic Drake, where I talk about comic books and my name is Drake. Let's talk about it. But before getting too far into things, I want to give a big thank you to Manscaped for sponsoring today's video. Now, I've been rocking a beard for about 12 years, and I've been using the same trimmer during that entire time. But Manscaped sent me their new beard hedger, and man, it's been nice. The beard hedger has a powerful 7200 RPM motor and a titanium coated T-blade, and with over 20 different cutting lengths, you can get anything from 5 o'clock shadow to a lion's mane with only one guard. It's also waterproof, cordless, and rechargeable, which means that you can use it in the shower for less mess. If you want to get started for yourself, then I recommend getting the Beard Hedger Pro Kit, which includes the aforementioned trimmer, special beard, shampoo, conditioner, oil, and balm, a travel case, and a brush, comb, and scissors. Honestly, it's been a real game changer, and my girlfriend loves it. Just go to manscaped.com/comicd and use the code ComicDrake to get 20% off and free international shipping. So thanks again to Manscaped for always sponsoring these videos that are likely to get demonetized, but now, let's get back to it. Golden Boy was created by the mangaka Tatsuya Agawa, and it originally started out as a bi-weekly series in Super Jump magazine, the older and more mature brother to Shonen Jump. It ran from 1992 to 1997, and it is 94 chapters long. For context, the anime is only 6 episodes, and each episode only covers just one chapter of the manga. That means the show only covers slightly over 6% of the entire series. The general plot follows a guy named Kentaro Oe, and he is simultaneously one of the most brilliant people on the planet, and is also a complete fucking idiot. Golden Boy is a slice-of-life series where he travels across Japan on a bicycle in pursuit of studying the world by taking up various odd jobs wherever he can. Kentaro has been a cashier, and a chef, and a famous rock star, and a cross-dressing exotic dancer, and a swim instructor, and even a film director. There is practically no limits to the number of settings this dude can find himself in. Your typical chapter of Golden Boy either has Kentaro in the middle of one of these jobs or just starting out. There's a sexy, generally milfy woman that enters the picture, and hilarity ensues. Because of the sheer variety of jobs that Kentaro finds himself in, the manga is able to extract a lot of situational humor, which helps the chapters from feeling too samey. That said, each chapter generally follows the same format. The woman of Kentaro's desires hates his guts, and he continuously sucks up to them and begs to be in their presence. This usually results in Kentaro working for them for free, and is sometimes their literal slave, to the point where he'll actually wear a t-shirt that says slave. Kentaro makes mistake after mistake, which pisses off the woman even further, which builds to a breaking point where he's forced to leave. But as soon as he's gone, it's revealed that Kentaro left behind one of the greatest things that the woman has ever seen. It could be an award-winning film edit, a master-level research paper, revolutionary teaching techniques, or even a computer program that is better than anything an entire software company could produce on their own. Sometimes what he left behind was a strong emotional impact, like when it's revealed that he'd given a bunch of money that he acquired to an old couple that was being harassed by the Yakuza, or that he had sustained massive injuries when trying to save the life of a god-awful woman that treated him like garbage. But regardless of the situation, the woman of the week falls head over heels for Kentaro when they understand that he's actually a pretty good guy. But by the time they come to that realization, he is already long gone seeking out his next adventure, spouting his signature catchphrase, study. Although most of what Golden Boy is known for is its raunchy and perverted humor, that's not all the series has going for it. There is a lot of genuinely great absurdist humor that has absolutely nothing to do with TNA. A lot of the comedy comes from the multiple shifts in art direction, from a childish goofy style for more lighthearted moments, traditional shonen action shots that are immediately undercut for comedic effect, and grotesque overdone facial shots that are kind of like SpongeBob. Yet one thing that cannot be overlooked is that even though the series is about an extraordinarily creepy dude, he's also super kind, helpful, and even inspiring. Now, this by no means excuses his behavior, but Kentaro's relentless upbeat personality is what makes readers want to see what happens next in his story. Oh, and there's also this whole thing about Kentaro being a secret Kenpo master, but he only busts it out to defend innocent women. When it comes to his own physical well-being, he is completely down to get the shit kicked out of him, since his power is apparently too great to use willy-nilly.
I opened up a can of whoop-ass. I used my Kenpo training center technique in such a manner as stupid as this. I have so much more that I need to learn.
But now that you know the basic rundown, let's take a look at the anime, because it is by far the best and most popular incarnation of the series. But afterwards, we'll return back to the manga because it gets really, really weird. Released in 1995, the anime pretty much adapts those early chapters one-to-one, but it elevates them to a whole different level. There has never been an HD re-release of this series, so this is probably the best quality footage out there. But the actual animation can look legitimately great by its own merit, and gives off a charming, nostalgic vibe that really captures the 90s anime landscape. Though, sure, it looks good and the writing is solid, but without a doubt, the best thing the anime has going for it is the dub. Now look, Doug Smith has not done a whole lot of voice acting, but holy shit, his performance here takes the already batshit insane comedy and brings it up to god tier.
Money can't replace that kind of knowledge! Those notes were priceless! Ah! Oh, shit!
And here's the thing, this isn't simply haha loud equals funny. The volume is a factor, yes, but the delivery and cadence are just as important for making a goofy line sound even goofier.
Huh? Hey, what's this?
A black bra!
Each episode is great in its own right, but the first one perfectly sets the stage for what this show is all about, featuring arguably the most over-sexualized woman of the week. She owns a software company that Kentaro is desperate to learn from, with all of his prior coding experience coming from a textbook and a cardboard keyboard that he had drawn up under a bridge. This is followed up by a problematic episode about Kentaro falling for a high school student that he was tutoring, and then there is a legitimately sweet and heartfelt episode about an innocent girl that's working for her family's noodle house that was being taken advantage of by a two-faced Yakuza member. Then we get the swimming episode, where Kentaro bets that he can beat an Olympic gold medalist after just 1 month of training. And then an episode about a high society girl that is secretly a biker with an interesting relationship to her motorcycle. The final episode, though, is a wholly original story that was made exclusively for the show, which serves as a love letter to the animation industry, and also serves as a proper finale, where all the women from previous episodes chip in to complete an animated movie that is way behind schedule. In my opinion, many of the jokes in the original manga really benefit from being animated, and they land so much better as a result. Take for instance this bit where a woman punches Kentaro. It's okay. But now take a look at how that same joke is handled in the show by messing around with the frame rate and cutting the audio.
Me! It was I!
What the hell would you do that for?
Or take a look at the very next panel of the manga. There's a juvenile gag where the woman's boobs make multiple boing boing sound effects when she moves, but since the anime has motion, the joke is conveyed through complete over-animation like a Dead or Alive game. Plus, instead of having a bunch of intrusive sound effects cluttering up the audio track, they were able to turn this into a recurring joke throughout the episode, with every scene of the character featuring these absurd chess physics. The animated format also allows for jokes to be expanded upon, like this scene where Kentaro is trying to covertly prevent a scummy guy from sexually assaulting a woman, but he instead winds up on the receiving end. This dude's finishing move is his special corkscrew kiss, but what that means isn't super clear on the panel. But in the anime, on the other hand,
The Kagure special corkscrew kiss!
sometimes the show will just add new jokes entirely, like this gem.
Vaporels! Hey, take it easy, damn it.
So yeah, in my opinion, the show is hands down the best way to engage with the series. But honestly, you might want to leave it there because afterwards, well, let's loop back to the manga and find out. The first few chapters of the anime didn't adapt follow a pretty similar structure to what we've already seen and would feel right at home with the other ones that got the animated treatment. However, the changes to the format are subtle at first, but then they take a huge and noticeable shift in tone. So generally the ending of each chapter of Golden Boy has the woman of the week deeply falling for Kentaro, but it's worth noting that he never actually ended up with any of them. In the later chapters though, not only is it extremely common for Kentaro to actually be sleeping with the women that he encounters, but he's also amassed entire harems on multiple occasions. Unfortunately though, these chapters end up feeling a bit repetitive, with a lot of the same gags frequently being reused. But the big kicker was when the manga moved away from self-contained one-chapter antics to instead expand into multi-chapter arcs. And man, it just doesn't work. The snappy, fast-paced nature of the previous stories was one of the things that really worked in the manga's favor. Not only that, but the sheer variety of jobs that Kentaro took on allowed for the situational humor to be a big focus, with no one setting overstaying its welcome. With the longer arcs, on the other hand, if you're not vibing with a particular storyline or the characters involved in it, then who knows how long you have to put up with them. But also, by putting a much greater emphasis on the plot, the jokes fall to the wayside, and the end result is that Golden Boy really isn't a comedy series anymore. My favorite manga is a series called Bakuman. It's a book that's about the manga making process, and there's a cynical mentality where the characters state that if you want to make a series more popular, then stop focusing on the manga's unique aspects and instead just turn it into a battle series. Like how Yu Yu Hakusho went from Spirit Detective to a 60-chapter tournament arc. I'm not gonna lie though, I really fuck with the Dark Tournament. In the case of Golden Boy, the emphasis is moved away from jokes in favor of doubling down on the sexual content. And I'm gonna be real here, the manga just becomes straight up hentai. Now that's not me trying to diss on the book or insult hentai, but to go from a yes, incredibly horny comedy with an excessive amount of fan service to complete unabashed porn is a shift in dynamic that not everybody is going to enjoy. And for me personally, yeah, I'm not a fan. What can I say? I liked when the funny guy embarrasses himself and makes silly faces. I didn't necessarily sign up for an 18-page chapter that has 13 pages of it devoted to a sex scene that Kentaro narrates while hiding in a closet. It's like Gwent from The Witcher. Yeah, it's a fun game in moderation, and there is absolutely a market for people that want to exclusively experience it, but that's not necessarily what I signed up for, and is certainly not the reason that I'm playing the game. I'm playing it for the plot. The longer storylines are also interesting. Like, the first arc is all about a mind control sex cult that's assimilating new members by using sex to break people's concept of their individual selves, living under the delusion that they are a sexual hive mind that is linked with their cult leader, a beast with a billion backs, if you will. Kentaro gets involved because one of his regulars at his udon stand has lost his fiancée to the cult, and Kentaro took it upon himself to get her back. But at the same time, Kentaro was also brainwashing people by accident and indoctrinating them into his carefree lifestyle of study. The plot starts off as kind of whatever, but it goes on and on and on, and boy howdy, it gets kinkier and kinkier as it goes. Throughout Golden Boy, Tatsuya Gawa has worn its obsession with BDSM on his sleeve, but at this point, it gets to hardcore levels. The manga also gets, like, really political, which is funny because generally the people that shit all over American comics for being quote-unquote too political like to prop up manga as apolitical masterpieces, even though there's politics all over popular manga. But since not every series is as explicit about their politics like Death Note or Attack on Titan, many fans with next to no media literacy are oblivious to the politics in anime because wow, cool gun!
Also, many fans of Japanese media don't actually know anything about Japanese politics, so they don't notice it.
I honestly don't mind the political stuff in Golden Boy. I mean, yeah, the sex cult is really fucking weird, but it's at least somewhat interesting as a metaphor for how Japanese men at the time were expected to work for the same company for most of their lives and have to tie a lot of their personal identity with the company. The metaphor is also meant to evoke the dangers of blind patriotism and how that level of sycophantic devotion can easily be taken advantage of and weaponized. It's literally the US agent storyline from the 80s Captain America comics and Falcon and the Winter Soldier, but with less bald eagle and more spread eagle. But even though I do find this deeper commentary to be really interesting, it is still a massive example of how Golden Boy's tone at the time had shifted in a way that can be off-putting to many readers. But this next arc is what made me quit the series entirely. So, Kentaro ended up training under a 16-year-old thief and is paid in various articles of her clothing that he wants to sniff. He ends up becoming so obsessed with this girl that when he's accumulated a complete schoolgirl uniform, he puts it all on in order to infiltrate the all-girls school that she attends. See, as it turns out, Kentaro is a dead ringer for the girl that he's been working with, and when she finds out, she blackmails Kentaro to go to school in her stead for the rest of the semester, or else she'll tell the cops about this entire ordeal. Kentaro is super jazzed about this entire endeavor, not only because he gets to look at a bunch of underage girls in the locker room, but he also relishes the opportunity to be in an academic setting once again. But he's not too keen on how the school is teaching its students. Basically, this arc is Tatsuya Gawa's opportunity to throw shade at the Japanese education system, which is all fine and dandy, but the other major focus is Kentaro getting into a relationship and having sex with a 15-year-old, complete with explicit artwork, and nope, I am out. Look, I can read through the occasional off-putting moment for the sake of storytelling, but with how pornographic the series had gotten to this point, I felt deeply uncomfortable giving this series any more of my time. And I don't want to hear from people saying,
well, actually, the age of consent in Japan is 13, and we shouldn't be putting Western standards onto their media. There's nothing wrong with sexualizing these girls.
And to that I say, I'm not going to apologize for being uncomfortable with reading through an explicit sex scene with a minor. Hot take, I know. However, for the sake of completion, I did read through some summaries online, and I'm glad I stopped where I did. So like, the sex cult is back, and they're using a woman that has swarms of people addicted to her piss, and they're also implementing advanced VR devices that let you relive your memories. So Kentaro gives it a shot, and for the next 43 chapters, all of this takes place in an extended VR-induced flashback which shows his origin story. That is nearly half of the entire series. From what I read online, this section of the manga is pretty straightforward. Kentaro is introduced to philosophy by a girl at college, and he's dating both her and a more normal girl. The dude that's in charge of the sex cult was Kentaro's rival from back in school, and there is a love triangle between him and the philosopher girl. Most of the end of the book is devoted to ruminating on various political topics and extolling the virtues of getting outside the system and to go study life by living it. But then in the middle of an arc, we randomly cut back to Kentaro, who's had his VR session interrupted by an unseen force. And this is literally where the series ends. It's pretty obvious this abrupt cutoff is a nod to the book's cancellation, but I couldn't actually find any explanation for why it got axed, at least on any English-speaking sites. Though there must have been some demand for Golden Boy to return, because 13 years later, a sequel series was created and ran for about a year. Golden Boy 2! Yay! One would expect that since the previous series infamously ended on a hasty cliffhanger, that Golden Boy 2 would give some sort of resolution. right? Yeah, no, the ending is never addressed, and we instead get an 18-year time skip. So that means that now we're following a nearly 40-year-old Kentaro who is still traveling Japan on his bike doing odd jobs. And even though he has spent nearly 2 decades studying the world, Kentaro is the exact same dude with the exact same personality. So why even bother making this a time skip in the first place? But whatever. Golden Boy 2 starts off in the middle of Kentaro working at a luxury hair salon where he invents advanced programs that generates what potential hairstyles could look like for their customers. He gets into conflict with another beautician, and it's discovered that Kentaro has the ability to massage people so that he can basically get anyone to say or do anything he wants. Sure. Justifiably, this creeps people out, and as a result, he gets fired. Really though, there's not much more I can say because only the first 4 chapters of the series has been translated so far, but the general vibes are meh. It's not really funny and it fails to capture the magic of what made the original book work in the first place. After Golden Boy came and went, Tatsuya Gawa spent his time focusing on the other series that he was working on, Tokyo University Story. Appropriately followed by a career in the porn industry, where he wrote and directed several films for a studio called Soft On Demand, which seems like the complete opposite of what you would want from a company of that nature. Oh, and he apparently made a God of War manga as a pre-order bonus for Ghost of Sparta in Japan, but the only image that I've been able to find of it online is this. Maybe a video game preservationist can hunt it down to archive it, but it happened. Even after all of this, Golden Boy continues to be one of my favorite comedy anime, but I'll admit that my relationship with it now is a bit more complicated now that I know about the creator and how the rest of the series turned out. But I'm glad that I now have a more informed understanding about the material, because at the end of the day, it's important to keep an open mind and study. I really like these April Fool's videos because it lets me do a lot of reading and research for completely insane subjects. So I hope you guys had as much fun watching this as I had making it. And if you liked this video, then why not consider subscribing or even watching another one? And if you want more like horny content, I have an entire playlist of the superhero relationship videos that I make that have amassed millions of views at this point, so maybe consider giving those a watch. But anyway, I hope you learned at least a little something new, and hopefully, I'll see you next time.